So our next act was also here last year, but she's not a nun. In fact, she's none of the above. Her name is Louise Halsey, and she comes to us halfway from Little Rock, halfway from Johnson, so she's a little schizophrenic. This is her act, and we'd like to welcome her from the Little Mulberry, Johnson, and Little Rock. That might explain her act is in 2 parts. So please welcome Louise Halsey with Back to the Land, Part 1.
I have the same reaction that I had last year. This is a bit phallic for me, but it does amplify the voice. Thank you so much for having me here. I was here last year and it was delightful. I appreciate the Goddess Festival, A, that it exists, and B, that people put it on, and C, that I got invited back. That's fabulous news for me. Last year I had 5 minutes, this year I have a lot longer, so I'm really more nervous. But, you know, I picked out a pretty dress from Goodwill, and I got earrings. So I'm ready to go. And I really appreciate the theme. The theme this year is restoring balance. And I don't really think there's time in the universe for me to address that. Things are really, really, really wacky right now. I decided I didn't want to rant and rave. We have a bit too much of that going on. And so I searched for a topic that I thought you wouldn't already have a position on, it wouldn't be controversial, I wouldn't be, you know, creating more of that negative, divisive energy that we seem to be generating. And so I decided that I would talk about myself. And so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to give a little explanation. I call this Back to the Land, or How I Got to Northwest Arkansas. And there's a little irony in this. I actually grew up in downtown Charleston, South Carolina. My parents were both visual artists. They didn't actually raise any animals or farm anything. They were part of a sort of bohemian fringe of the Charleston society. So I have done a performance in the past where a friend of mine who was an actual real performer watched what I was doing, and she told me afterwards that the audience actually hadn't a clue what I was doing. So I've decided to create a few little markers along the way. So what I hope this will do is like pieces of a puzzle, and I've created the pieces, and now it's going to be up to you to make sense of the puzzle. So the first piece is called agricultural training. And as I said, I grew up in downtown Charleston. My parents rented the top 3 floors of a house downtown. And there was a yard, there was a front yard and a backyard, and the backyard was much bigger. And in the summers, my dad and I would go out early in the morning and we would pick figs. And I was small enough, I'd climb up in the tree and I'd avoid those clusters of June beetles, and I'd pick the big figs up in the top. And then we'd take them inside to my mom, and my mom would make fig preserves. And that, in fact, was the only canning I saw before I did my own. So section 2 is feminism. My mom grew up in a small town in South Carolina, and her mother actually did lots of cooking, canning, sewing. Her domestic life was really the center of her life. And my mom actually wanted something different. As a young girl, she tried repeatedly to kiss her elbow because there was a myth at the time that if you did that, you would become the opposite sex. But after trying to kiss that elbow repeatedly over years and not turning into a boy, she made the decision to have a life where she would have the power and influence she saw the boys as having. Religion.